Off and running on a Tuesday. It's the 4th of March. Welcome inside the vault for a Ravens lunch hour live stream. I'm Bobby Trossett, as always, joined alongside my co-host and partner, Sarah Ellison. Free agency begins next week. Hang on tight. It's going to be a busy one if it's anything like last year, even though I don't know if we're expecting the signing that came in last year on day one at the running back position or something to that caliber. But hopefully it'll be filled with plenty of events and news. And speaking of news, ESPN insider Jeremy Fowler had exactly that in terms of what could be coming up here in the imminent future, Sarah, for the Ravens. And we'll talk about what that is in just a bit. We'll also take a look at what Kyle Hamilton had to say in a recent sit-down with Chris Long, former NFL defensive end. Let's just say this, Sarah, when a defensive back, while he's not built like a defensive back, but while when a defensive back sits down with a defensive end and blows that defensive end's minds like out of this world in terms of what he's been working on, what his priorities are, right? What he's up to on the football field. I think that just speaks to the unicorn-like player that number 14 is. So we'll share some clips there. We got a ton of quick hits. Great to see you. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday to you. Bobby, we are closing in on free agency. I mean, as you said, players are allowed to start talking with other teams on Monday. Yeah. So we are less than a week out. It's 6 days. So the Ravens have the vast majority of their starters under contract, but there are some holes throughout the roster. And if they want to keep any of these guys that are going to be allowed to talk with other teams come Monday, this week is the time to do it. So, Bobby, I thought today would be just a great day. Sunny, by the way. I'm catching you with your Florida weather and in your sunny Florida weather. It's 61 today with the sun out today here in Columbus. So I'm feeling good. So it feels like a good day to review the Ravens unrestricted free agents and talk about who we think are going to stay and who are going to go. And we will use the help of Jess Rebeck, who wrote his own article on that topic yesterday. So you want to jump in? You got anything else to tease?
Let's do it.
All right, let's start with the stays. I'm going to give a list, and then we'll each pick a guy to talk about here. But there are only 6 guys that Jeff's Rebeck is predicting to stay, and we're going to do this in alphabetical order. Okay, he believes the following are going to stay: inside linebacker Chris Board, linebacker Malik Harrison, fullback Patrick Ricard, left tackle Ronnie Stanley, wide receiver Tylan Wallace, and finally cornerback Tre'Davious White. Who do you want to talk about first?
Oh, Ronnie.
All right. Because do you agree? I'm pretty sure you do.
Yeah, that was my biggest priority going into Indianapolis last week, right? I don't think that's any secret that was the case. So he comes to mind first just in terms of importance. I think there's a lot of depth importance that you see on this screen right now that Jeff elected to deem as a stay. You know, somebody that I guess comes as a surprise is Tre'Davious maybe, but then again, they brought him in at the deadline for a reason. They needed depth. He's cheap at this point in his career, and he showed a little bit of something last year down the closing stretch. So, yeah, but I would, just in terms of priorities, I would say Ronnie.
Yeah, so that is what, as you mentioned off the top, Jeremy Fowler, he was talking to everybody while he was out there at the Combine. So were you. But I know he was probably also talking to GMs or people inside the front office. I know you're working your way up to that yourself. Yeah. And so this is what he reported coming out of the Combine. He says the sense out of Indy is that the Ravens and left tackle Ronnie Stanley can agree to terms on an extension in the coming days. Okay, and again, this was released, I believe, yesterday, maybe the day before. So in the coming days. And Bobby, it has to be in the coming days. Because that is a man you do not want to reach Monday unsigned if you plan on keeping him around. Jeremy goes on to say it's hardly a slam dunk, but there's a sentiment to try to make that happen. Some inside the league are projecting that deal to land somewhere between 21 and 23 million per year. Bobby, we looked at what Alaric Jackson got when he re-signed with the Rams. He was just under 20 million a year. So this is going to be very interesting. I don't know if you caught it, but remember in the middle of the season, Ronnie Stanley did an interview with Ravens Hall of Fame left tackle.
Jonathan Ogden.
How that name can even slip. Jonathan Ogden. And he said to Jonathan Ogden that he wanted to be a Raven for life, and to make that happen, he would be willing to take a little bit less. Now, remember, he did take a lot less last year when he took a $7.5 million pay cut. So we shall see. But 21 to 23 is a little bit more than Jackson got with the Rams. Jeremy Fowler goes on to say, Stanley going back to the Ravens would help free agent left tackle Cam Robinson, who will hit the free agent market, so he'll have a lot to choose from. Jeremy says, I still suspect the Patriots will target tackles, and don't sleep on the Chiefs either. Oh, I'm not. Many around the league are loosely expecting the Chiefs to entertain Stanley's market. Would he get free? I do not want to see Ronnie Stanley go to the Chiefs like Orlando Brown Jr. did. We do not need to see that again. We do not need to see Patrick Mahomes being protected by Ronnie Stanley. He's done, when healthy, a great job for Lamar Jackson. So the Ravens need to see that has to happen in the coming days, or else he's going to start getting whispers in his ear from teams like the Patriots and the Chiefs.
Yeah, I would think, based on all the in-person interactions that were probably able to be had last week in Indy, that they're maybe just in the negotiating process right now. I mean, John Harbaugh referred to it as, we will probably keep him.
Mm-hmm.
Eric was a little bit more tight-lipped, as you would imagine, as a general manager.
Yeah, but everybody, he kind of signaled it too, though.
He did.
He was like, it's not 100%, but that's pretty strong for EDC.
Compared to Harbs, though, it's like, all right, he had his GM hat on. Yeah. So if all of this is if we're starting to read the tea leaves here, and it's a little bit more than tea, honestly, you got Harbaugh saying that we'll probably keep him. Fowler says it's imminent in the coming days. At least there's a chance that it could be imminent. And you're right on deck of the new league year beginning, with all of these rules and all these other teams that could potentially make a run at him if you don't get your act together. So it all kind of matches up nicely, don't you think?
Absolutely. But like Jeremy said, it's not a slam dunk. As Eric DeCosta said, it's not 100%. We're still waiting on it to happen. So until it does, we gotta wait. So let's back up. So that's okay. Ronnie Stanley. I agree with you on Tylan Wallace. I think Tylan Wallace, to me, would be a no-brainer. He's big time on special teams. He is unselfish and willing to block. And he's opportunistic, Bobby. Like, whenever you call his number, he makes something happen. And with Nelson Aguilar projected to leave, there are some snaps out there. I wouldn't mind seeing Tylan Wallace back as maybe wide receiver number 4.
The only knock I can think of for Tylan is probably just that he had those muffs this past season and really kind of wasn't able to fortify the punt return specialist role that he was given or earned at the time, and then ended up losing that job. Aside from that, everything you just laid out is exactly what he's given the Ravens since he was drafted. So I think a lot of the fan base has been left wanting more from him. Matter of fact, they want more of a sample size. They want more of a role. I don't know if I ever see that happening, materializing for Tylan, but there's a lot to like about him. We haven't even mentioned just how team first he is too. Maybe that's what you were alluding to with being a willing blocker.
Absolutely. Here's a couple other guys that I think are under the radar contributors. Chris Board, obviously he was elected a special teams captain. So for special teams reasons alone, you want to think about bringing him back. But he also helped stabilize that inside linebacker position next to Roquan Smith. And so I'm sure the Ravens are going to try once again to continue to develop Trenton Simpson to be back there as the starter. But you saw what Chris Board can do when he steps in. So that's great backup help at that inside linebacker position while having your special teams captain in the room. So not enough people talk about that. That one's one of those. There's a couple of glue guys on this list, and I think Chris Board is one of them.
Chris is an ace. Yeah, he's a special teams ace. And then to your point, out of nowhere, when Trenton was demoted, they asked a lot of him, and they asked a lot of who became also somebody, especially against the run that they were using in certain packages, Malik Harrison. He's also on this list, like you mentioned. So that would be depth signings. You hope that or emergency case basis signings. I mean, obviously Malik has some outside linebacker reps under his belt over his career in Baltimore as well, and they've really used him as a Swiss Army knife to a certain extent. But I think ideally, with a new linebackers coach coming in, the highly touted assistant there from the college ranks, and Tyler Santucci, and really overhauling a number of different staff members defensively, on top of maybe having a true first look at NFL life. Maybe there's still optimism for Trenton that he could very well be a future option as a starter and a starting inside linebacker for you. I hope they haven't given up on that yet.
I doubt that. I doubt that big time. Malik Harrison, another glue guy that like plays inside linebacker and outside linebacker and special teams. He had the second most special teams tackles last year. And Bobby, like, he starts when he needs to, or like doesn't start. He had 7 starts. He had 54 tackles. He had 2 sacks. He's another one of those. But him, I could see getting signed elsewhere. Yeah. Because he is one of those guys that like is unheralded among the fan base. But I promise you, other teams notice him because he can kind of do a little of everything. He can kind of like seal that edge as an outside linebacker. So I think it would be, again, just another glue guy that you would love to have back. Patrick Ricard, I almost have just been like, not even thinking about him because I think it's just going to happen. And I also think that they could do it. Not that you should risk it, but it's not like there's a lot of teams out there looking for fullbacks. So even if you didn't have him locked up by Monday, but that to me seems like a no-brainer. Like that's going to, I could see just like Ronnie Stanley's going to happen in the coming days. I could see Patrick Ricard being one of those people. The one guy on this list from Jeff Zrebeck that I'm like, I don't know about that one, is Tre'Davious White.
That's exactly, exactly.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, it's actually, a minute ago when you said you agree with me on Tylen, I was like, I wonder if she meant Tre'Davious White, because off the top, when you said, hey, look at this list from 1,000 feet up, that was actually my first reaction. I was like, wow, I'm surprised.
I mixed them up. Okay.
That's okay. Because I think Tylen, we both have the same viewpoint on both players. But for Tre'Davious, they brought him in at the deadline, and he played some decent outside corner for him. But I just thought he was seen as like a 2 or 3 month rental, So this was the surprise of the list for me.
Yeah, and I also feel like he'd be, again, because if the Ravens draft a corner, like for sure, if the best player available is a corner at number 27 in their first round, and the Ravens go ahead and pick, another corner, like Tre'Davious, it'd be more like bubble. But Tre'Davious is a guy that, I don't know, do you need to sign him first week? Like he feels like a second or third wave kind of a free agent. And so maybe you wait until after the draft to revisit that. Now, that's not to say, I mean, he did help stabilize things. Remember, they traded for him after the trade deadline, right before the trade deadline in week 10. So he had 7 regular season games. So maybe he could be back as like a 4th or 5th, depending on what happens in the draft.
Yeah.
But that might have been one where Jeff was like, kind of 50-50 and went with the stays.
Yeah, but I think I'm with you on the way that you're projecting him timeline wise. Like there's not like this circle around him, big urgency. Right. I think time is on your side with Tre'Davious, and he would be a solid depth piece for you for sure. I think we're all expecting them to draft a cornerback like you said, like you mentioned, like we've talked about a lot. But there's that's a position that you really can't have enough of. And then just to wrap up my thoughts on this slide, on the Ricard piece, is to your point earlier, there's only a handful of teams that are still truly embracing and investing in the fullback position. Baltimore's unquestionably one of them. San Francisco's unquestionably 2 of them. And to me, a lot of people probably see it as a luxury. Well, it's a luxury the Ravens are willing to invest in, because he's a key piece to their offense. He's somebody that is, you talk about do it all. He's a pass catcher at times, big in the run game, a homegrown Raven, undrafted out of Maine, and recently said he wants to retire a Raven. So
Yeah.
It seems like that would be,
Will finish
again,
his career in Baltimore.
I was going to say, and it just
Yeah.
seems like that's a luxury that they've been willing to continue to embrace because of the ability. I mean, we're talking about a 300+ pound fullback who is as nimble as
Do you
as any
do you think
fullback.
he's a luxury or do you think he's a staple?
Well, I think, yeah, it's a good question. What I mean by
I
luxury is I think some will view just the fact that they're willing to um, allocate in a cap strapped era money that goes towards the fullback. It might not be a lot, right?
It's
So
definitely not a lot. That's why, like, this isn't a luxury. Patrick Ricard is on the field a lot. He's on the field a lot in this Ravens offense. And Derrick Henry has talked about how much he loves running behind him. And fullbacks are extremely cheap because a lot of teams don't have it. But the Ravens' identity on offense is, well, it always starts with being the bully, right? Even though a couple times they got bullied, so they continue to beef up that offensive line. But I don't think the Ravens see him as some sort of luxury. I don't think they see him as like, oh, he could stay or go. Like, I think he's a staple in
sure.
the offense in the way that John Harbaugh wants the offense to be run, with a bruising back like Derrick Henry, and then having a bruising lead blocker in Patrick Ricard. And then you can play off of that with the speed of Lamar Jackson or a Justice Hill, or maybe when he gets back, Mitchell. So I just don't. Those in the chat, I saw the same thing you did. Those in the chat are saying, "Oh, we don't need him." That's like, no, he's going to be cheap, and he's on the field. I'll look up how often he's on there. I bet he's on there like at least 60% plus of the time, which outside of an offensive lineman is a ton. You
Well,
know?
and remember too, when he was cutting his teeth earlier on in his career, I'll never
Yeah.
forget having conversations with him that there wasn't enough time in the day to get to as many meetings at the castle that he needed to be in because he got some work on up and down the defensive line. He was needing to run to the special teams unit, and of course, he was trying to work his way into the fullback rotation. So he really is he's a do-it-all guy, team first guy. And I guess what I mean by the luxury thing is just the fact that if you put the scheme aside, which scheme is everything, so that's kind of irrelevant. But if you were to, and you look at the landscape of the NFL, just the fact that fullbacks have become such a
Yeah.
uh,
But you can't apply what the rest of the NFL to the
you can't,
Ravens.
you
Yeah.
can't, you
Yeah.
can't, and they've shown that. Now it hasn't paid dividends yet in the Lamar era. They hope it will, but obviously, to your point, Pat's a key component to what they're trying to do here.
Yeah, and he's not gonna. Not only him, everybody but Ronnie Stanley on this list is not gonna break the bank.
Yep.
Right? It's just Ronnie. All of these guys, maybe Patrick Ricard is a little bit more. I mean, we'll see. Maybe Malik Harrison can command a little bit more on the open market, and maybe the Ravens have to, let him go and they kind of restock there. But like a lot of these guys are not going to be too high above, kind of veteran minimum type of stuff. So it's really not something to worry about. And by the way, if you don't pick up some of these guys, you're going to have to pay the same, because they're so inexpensive, the exact same money will go to somebody else that you don't know, right? Maybe a 6th-round pick would be less, but then you don't know what he's going to bring, this and that. So outside of Ronnie, nobody's gonna break the bank here.
Agreed.
Should we move forward to the goes?
Let's do it.
All right, those were the stays via Jeff Zrebeck. Here's goes. There's a much longer list with goes, so we're going to start with part 1, alphabetical order. We'll go Nelson Aguilar goes, Ben Cleveland, Deontay Hardy, Deontay Johnson, Josh Johnson, quarterback, Josh Jones, the guard tackle, and Patrick McCary. Who do you want to start with?
Who do I want to start with? Because there's really no surprises on the list, to be honest with you, just for starters. That's my first thought is I don't see any huge surprise on this list. I guess we should probably start with, well, in terms of importance, it probably should be backup quarterback because that's one of the most important positions in the entire league. My mind went with McCary just because he's been the guy and sort of the Swiss Army knife for them up and down the line. But we should probably start with quarterback because you're one play away, knock on wood, from turning to this guy at any point in any season. So
Right.
clearly, Josh Johnson has been the epitome of professionalism. He's been a journeyman. This is a second or third stint in Baltimore, if I'm not mistaken. Clearly, within the last couple of years, they have at least tried to improve this position. There have been small little parslings left behind in various outlets and reports that the Ravens weren't they looking at Baker Mayfield several years ago at one
Yep.
point?
Yep.
Like,
Well,
Ryan
that's coming
Tannehill.
off the trauma of
Yeah,
Lamar not finishing the season 2 years in a row.
for
And now
sure.
we're 2 years removed from that, so now we're all feeling safe.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's always one snap away from
Right.
needing them.
Right.
Yep.
You bring in a Malik Cunningham within the last year or so. He transitions from quarterback to wide receiver after New England gave up on him. You draft a couple, including an undrafted guy in Emory Jones. You draft Devin Leary out of Kentucky, if I'm not mistaken. I don't believe, either one of those. I don't even think Emory's still with the organization, is he? Devin is, because he's a second-year player, rising sophomore. Has he shown anything that makes them feel confident that he can be the guy, God forbid, if they were ever to be in a position where QB2 were to be thrust in? So, this is without question the first thing that comes to mind when you look at that list.
So it's pretty interesting what Jeff has to say about this, because obviously he was talking to people in Indy. He says there was buzz in Indianapolis that the Ravens would be in the veteran backup quarterback market. It makes sense. Josh is a well-respected veteran and developed a strong rapport with Jackson. However, as long as they're willing to spend a little more, the Ravens should be able to find an upgrade. Yeah. It's unclear how much longer Johnson wants to play. Returning as the emergency number 3 quarterback is an option too. Okay, but you can figure that out much further down the line. You don't need to figure it out this week before, free agency begins. It's interesting that he says that the buzz in Indy was that they would be in the veteran backup quarterback market, because I thought I saw it was on ESPN. So it was either from Fowler or Graziano, because they both had long notebooks coming out of the combine. And one of those two said that the Ravens were, looking at quarterback backup options to draft. And Eric DaCosta was asked at podium about that. And he's like, well, all the smart teams are always looking at quarterbacks. Always, always, always. So obviously they drafted Devin Leary last year. That to me was a big shock, because he no way seems to resemble what Lamar Jackson can do. And so I was like, well, if you're going to do that and get a guy that's not even in the mold of Lamar, then go get a more seasoned backup that isn't in Lamar's mold, but has more experience or whatnot. So Bobby, last year at this time, I was really hoping the Ravens would upgrade at quarterback, because I didn't think that Josh Johnson would be that guy. I'm looking for a guy that can maybe win around 50% of the games if Lamar's out for, a handful of games. I mean, if he goes down for a majority of the season, then the Ravens are, they're in trouble. There's not much hope at all. But if Lamar were only to go down for a couple of games, I want somebody that's going to give you a chance to win at least half of those.
Sure.
And Tyler Huntley his stats proved that he couldn't lead them to winning that often. And luckily, we never had to see if Josh Johnson could do that. So I am glad to hear, at least from Jeff Zrebiek's position, that they may be looking to upgrade there.
I'm perusing through some. Well, let's do this. Let's take a look at just for what's and giggles. Let's just take a look at the pending free agent quarterbacks that will be out there, and let's scroll down, because the top of this list that's not who they're going to be in on, right? The list that I'm looking at. Yeah.
Can you share the screen?
Yeah, let me do a screen share,
right,
just so we can look. And what I mean by the top is it's a list of from north to south average annual value. So let's just scroll way down, right? Because of what they already have on the books for Lamar. But so of course, the Darnolds and the Wilsons and the Lances. Yeah, this is spot rack. They're going to be up there, especially Sam. I mean, there's no hotter quarterback right now than Sam Darnold, and obviously Minnesota has to make a decision after what he did this year when J.J. McCarthy went down before the season began. But all right, so Sam Darnold. Yeah, of course, Flacco's on this list, but I'll just rip through it for the audio-only audience. You got Sam Darnold, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Jacoby Brissett, Taylor Heineke, Marcus Mariota, Drew Lock, Jarrett Stidham, Justin Fields, Joe Flacco, Jameis Winston, Mac Jones, Carson Wentz, Jimmy Garoppolo, Case Keenum. I mean, so on and so forth. So
I would like Jameis Winston just for the pure entertainment. Oh my gosh, I love that dude.
and would he give it to you? Here
Oh,
is Josh Johnson's average annual value, just over 1.3, to give you an idea of what they've been paying him. So guys that are in that neighborhood, and granted, the Russell Wilson one is, you have to obviously put um, a big asterisk next to that one, because Denver was paying how much for him last year to play for Pittsburgh? Just a ridiculous number. But
you know
guys
what
that
would
are in
be
that
cool?
range, yeah.
Not that I think it's like possible. Russell Wilson.
Well,
Like I said, it's not going to be possible.
yeah,
He's going to want a starting position somewhere.
yeah.
But if he ever hit a place in his career where he's like, I'm not going to be starter anymore, and he's older now. He used to have, legs and all that kind of stuff. But what I like about him is that, again, because I'm looking for somebody that can just like not lose games, because if Lamar were to be injured and you've still got Derrick Henry and you've got a pounding run game and you've got hopefully a defense that resembled what they would look like at the end of the year rather than the beginning, like Russell Wilson is the type of guy that won't make too many mistakes and keep you in those games. Now, again, he's not going to want to play that role, but at some point he's going to hit that in his career, and I wouldn't mind him.
Yeah, I was going to say, the question is when. If
Yeah.
Pittsburgh would confidently turn to him after Fields led him to a 4-2 start, clearly they think that he's still a few years away from that era, or from that phase of his game. Let's call it the phase of his career. So anyway, in the ballpark of where Josh Johnson was being paid, you're seeing names like a Russ, but again, a Russ is, a lot of that's just due to the move that Pittsburgh made because of how much Denver paid Russ to begin with, and then the Sean Payton
Mhm.
era begins, and so really that's kind of like an outlier on this list.
Yeah.
But like Teddy Bridgewater, he unretired, so he'll be looking for a team. Kyle Allen, Kyle Trask, Brandon Allen, all of these are within $1 million or less than what they've been paying Josh Johnson. So, Cooper Rush has gotten some opportunities with Dallas in recent years due to injury. Mason Rudolph has. Now, if you're looking for qualities and traits that are similar to Lamar, guess who's back
Well,
out
that's
there?
not
Snoop is back out there, Sarah. So
love him as a person. We've been there, done
yep,
that. We saw the results.
yep.
Yeah.
So anyway, thought we'd
That's
take
why
an
it
early
might be
look.
the draft. It might need to be the draft.
Thought we'd take an
But we'll
early
see.
look based on today's content. That brings us back to the departing section of Jeff Cerebek's latest on The Athletic.
Yeah, so obviously, I mean, we don't have to go deep into some of these. Deontay Johnson they re-signed him procedurally. Just they want to see him get signed and maybe try to get some sort of draft comp pick. They wouldn't get a comp pick just for him, but maybe it could offset something else. Let me see here. Josh Jones. I mean, some of these like McCary or Josh Jones might depend on if they're able to sign Stanley. Right. So I think Jeff pointed that out in his McCary slide. It was like, you can't keep both of them. And they don't have a replacement for Stanley. But Jeff points out that you do have a replacement for McCary, and not exactly what McCary does, which is like move to all 5 spaces. There's not really a guy who can do that, but because they're set at so many of those spots, and you feel like maybe Andrew Voorhees can step up at left guard, and then you're probably going to use the draft to I wouldn't be shocked if they got at least 2 more offensive linemen through the draft with those 11 picks. So they would miss his versatility, and maybe they would bring him back if things were to like go south in Stanley's negotiations. But I'd say he goes if Stanley stays. Maybe Josh Jones would have a better shot too, as they're just like looking for backup stuff. Deontay Hardy seemed like a good signing at the time, but he did absolutely nothing this year. Nelson Aguilar, I thought he had a good 2023, but he took a step back in 2024. I definitely think he can upgrade there. Ben Cleveland, I hate to even like put this out there, but I feel bad for him right now. First of all, he was in John Harbaugh's doghouse for 4 years. Never really got to start. He obviously had that DUI, which that's his choice. He can't do that, right? You can't do that and put your own life and other people's life at risk. Then 2 weeks, according to TMZ Sports, 2 weeks after that DUI, he filed for divorce. It looks like, the reasoning for it is because from his end in the papers was because she cheated. So, man, I just want him to find good news somewhere. Where's Rave Kingdom? Rave Kingdom, you got to help the guy out. Help him find a job. It just feels like it's just tough sledding for him lately, and I hope he's able to turn it around.
Rave, I don't think there's any super chat that can fix what's going on with him right now. But yeah, from a human side, you hope that he's able to get his life, back on track, and maybe an NFL team will take a flyer on him. Tough to think though that Sarah, that he has the tape out there, or the stability that you need right now off the field to be an attractive candidate for a practice squad spot, or much less a 53-man roster spot. So yeah, best wishes to Ben. Obviously, this is a time in his life that I'm sure he wants to move on from, and you hope that he's able to do that at some point soon.
Absolutely. And then we'll just finish up with this, who goes part 2, according to Jeff, Trayvon Mullen, Steven Sims, who the Ravens picked up last second from the Texans to be a returner. Didn't quite work out the few times he had shots at it. Brandon Stevens, Brent Urban. I'm gonna miss those sideline conversations with Michael Pierce, and then Christian Welch. Christian Welch is a guy that I could see maybe down the line somehow return. He's done it before. He's left and come back. But Brett Urban, I know that they're going to draft a defensive line man, probably a defensive end. And then the big name on here, obviously, Bobby, is Brandon Stevens.
Yes, for sure. And just to give some love to Brent, being that it's his second stint with the team, and I know his wife Kate has absolutely loved everything about Baltimore. She's very active on X just within the last 10 days or so, and this must have been caught in the shuffle for us, or else it would have been a quick hit when we were in when I was in Indy. She reached out to her Twitter audience and said, "Hey, DM me your address if you want some signed gloves from Brent. We have so many from the past 3 seasons with the Ravens with a little heart emoji." So if that wasn't enough to kind of signal that it could be coming to an end here, I don't know what would be. So, best wishes to him if he continues his football career. What a great guy. And yeah, obviously Brandon Stevens, I think with Eric DaCosta's comments earlier in the offseason, we knew this was sort of inevitable. And as I learned last week, Sarah, it doesn't mean that it's not going to work out for him elsewhere. So what I was told is that it's a sneaky good market, I think is what the verbiage was there. So hey,
that Fowler told you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and John Harbaugh, he left the door open. What's funny is I tweeted that John Harbaugh told that to Garrett Downing over at the Ravens that, maybe we can get Brandon Stevens back. And I posted that snippet. And guess who liked it? Guess who liked it on Twitter of John Harbaugh leaving the door open for him. You got any guesses? He's very active on Twitter. Marlon Humphrey.
Yeah,
Marlon Humphrey.
I'm like, really narrowing it down is is tricky there, right?
I'm like, he's very active. Is there anybody more active on Twitter as a Ravens player than Marlon Humphrey? So he seemed to like that idea, but I'm with Jeff. I'm still predicting that he goes. He's going to be able to go out and test the market. And if Fowler is correct and he has a sneaky good market, then the Ravens will not match that. Yeah. As Jeff writes here, he goes, there will likely be teams that see how sticky Stevens can be in coverage, which is true. His primary issue has been finding the football, and they'll probably feel like they can fix or work around his flaws. The Ravens maintain that they haven't ruled out re-signing him, but that probably only happens if a market for Stevens doesn't develop. So Ravens need to upgrade there for sure. He had, again, I love him as a dude. He's the hardest worker ever. He's changed positions from running back, safety, corner. He can do a lot. But why that last minute thing? I think Jimmy Smith told you it was just like maybe there's like a last second panic, right? Where it's just like can't find that ball. And then he was just constantly being targeted, which just wears on a cornerback's confidence. And so wish him well, unless he comes back. And then we will definitely wish him well because we need him to be able to start finding that ball.
Panic is the exact word that Jimmy used when we caught up in that interview. So, and Jimmy knows a thing or two about defensive backs. So hopefully for Brandon's sake, his 2023 tape will carry him through and lead to that sneaky good market out there, on top of just how much of a need there is for people that, players that can play with the positional flexibility that he's proven that he's capable of doing in Baltimore. So appreciate you guys for being here today. Good live audience, over 3,300. So thanks for being here. Get ready for next week. We'll be live, of course, just like we are all year round, but free agency begins next week. So we'll have live reaction to however the Ravens choose to handle business. And we'll see if what we spent the last, 30 plus minutes talking about comes to fruition. And that is, the potential imminent re-signing, that is, of Ronnie Stanley. So let's get to one super chat here before we shift gears. And Isaiah hits us with a free agent question. Depth-wise, we open to someone like Justin Watson. Have not looked at his candidacy at all. He's a safety, isn't he?
He's a receiver.
Oh.
Yeah.
Shows you how much So Justin, let's see what Justin's been up to.
Let's see.
Played
let's
for
look at his
Tampa.
stats here.
Wait a second here. He's been out of the league. Oh, no, excuse me. He's been with Kansas City since 2022.
Let's see what his stats were. Okay, so he was Kansas City last year. 32 targets, 22 catches, 289 yards, 13.1 yards per reception, 2 touchdowns. Not the top guy on my list, just off of those stats. So
I don't have much on Justin, as you can tell. So, but Isaiah, if you do, feel free.
Everybody's saying tight end, but he's listed as wide receiver, maybe a big wide receiver.
Built maybe like one. But hey, Isaiah, if you're on a Justin Watson campaign tour, we'd love to learn what your perspective is for why you're pushing for that. So thanks for the super chat.
Is there another Justin Watson? Because everybody keeps claiming he's a tight end, but he's clearly 6'2", 215, listed as a wide receiver. Maybe he plays a little bit tight end too.
Well, he's won a couple Super Bowls. I know that. He spent his last few years in Kansas City, and prior to that, he was in Tampa from 2018 to 21. I just don't have a ton of familiarity. So anyway, appreciate you guys for being here. Please like the video on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, on your way in, I should say, because we're just getting going. We got another segment to get to, which begins with Kyle Hamilton. Sarah Chris Long, of course, former NFL defensive end, now hosting the Green Light podcast. Had a chance to catch up with Kyle, the Ravens all-pro safety. Kyle's been on a little bit, don't look now, that doesn't typically do this, but he's been on a little bit of a media tour this offseason.
Why doesn't he stop inside the vault?
I know, for real. I know one of our subscribers is his father, Derek Hamilton. So shout out, Derek.
It's because of him. I always call Kyle Derek. I don't know why it's stuck in my head.
You must be a big Derek fan. He's a former professional basketball player overseas. Maybe you were a fan of his hoops, But anyway, I believe this episode was taped at the Super Bowl, if I'm not mistaken. And these guys caught up on a number of things. It's a great conversation. Green Light is where you can go check it out. I've actually been trying to get Chris on the show for about a year. He's a busy man, so maybe we can look into that in the coming weeks. But
this would be good.
Yeah, he's awesome. And I think what's cool about this is that you're looking at a Super Bowl champion winning defensive end. Great player was Chris. And then you're looking at somebody who's just getting his career started, viewed by many as one of the top safeties in the game. The versatility's off the charts. He's an all-pro. He basically woke up and was born to be an all-pro in this league. He's got a basketball-sized frame, a great mind, so businesslike. We know all this about Kyle. But what I think a lot of people love about him is that he just has this sicko approach to the game, meaning I really truly believe that in his mind, he feels like he could suit up and play every single position on the defensive side of the ball. We've talked about this in the past because he shared it during one of his media availabilities, if I'm not mistaken, that he was working off the side with Ravens outside linebackers coach, the pass rush guru, Chuck Smith. And because we have seen a little bit of what Kyle can do up at the line of scrimmage, anytime he talks about it, I'm all ears. And that's exactly what he did with Chris in this most recent episode. Listen to this.
When you get to do it.
Yeah, it's
because I feel like.
And let me make sure we run it back. The first question,
Yeah.
do you love rushing?
Do you love rushing when you get to do it?
Yeah, it's
because I feel like you could probably rush as well as any second level player because of your gifts.
Yeah. I've actually been working. I don't know if you know who Chuck Smith is.
I know Chuck, yeah.
So me and Chuck get some pass rush stuff.
Because he's down in Atlanta, right?
Well, he was actually with the Ravens.
Oh, really?
Past couple of years.
Because he was based in Georgia.
Yeah, he did private sector. I think he still might do it.
So they brought him up to work with the Ravens.
Yeah, so he's like pretty much pass rush.
So what kind of moves you pick up so far?
Cross chop.
I love it.
I'm trying to get my spin down at some point.
How are you doing the spin right now?
I don't know the full terminology, but I'll like fake.
How do you think I feel talking coverage with you?
Facts.
Go ahead.
Whatever y'all say, the ice pick?
Yeah, you got an ice pick.
I got an ice pick, so I'll like go over with the opposite arm, and then like I'm trying to cross chop.
Yeah.
And then spin back that way.
I don't know if this would ever work for you, but I used to love spinning off a post. So like you come in, you put your hand on their outside pad, so they start to settle into an anchor, and then you whip that ice pick around, which is a nice change up.
I might have come to
and ask Chuck about it. I don't want to step on Chuck's toes. And then if you can get a swipe down, two hand swipe, bro.
I do that a lot to backs. Like I feel like backs and tackles. I'm mostly rushing against backs and tackles.
Right, exactly.
I'm rushing on the edge. I actually have gotten a good bull because they don't really expect the tackles.
Yeah, you bulled a big guy.
I did bull somebody.
No names?
No names. No names.
You don't want the next time you come in there, he's going to remember this podcast.
Right. But no, I just got him with a bull. And, it's kind of funny. Me and Chuck, it's kind of like a little thing that we have because I'm the only one that he really works with on pass rush. Like I'm a DB.
Yeah.
But we'll just get little stuff here and there. I'll try to pull it out during
I'll tell you what, back in the day, 7 years ago, when I was with Philly, Malcolm Jenkins used to come over every day and rush with us.
It's useful.
Yeah.
And like the best advice I got from pass rushing is just like, you got to have a plan.
Yes.
Like, because there's been so many times where I run in there, I'm like,
oh,
wait,
shit.
He didn't fall for that. And now I'm on my back. Like,
got to have a counter.
Yeah, for sure.
You got to have a counter.
I mean, is that not a fascinating conversation?
1,000. Go ahead.
You just mentioned earlier we wanted to talk alignment real quick. So just to be clear, Kyle logged over 1,000 snaps last year. Okay, he had over 300 run defense snaps, over 40 pass rush snaps, and over 600 coverage snaps. So, yes, he was all over the field. But, Sarah, there's so much to pick apart from that little 2-minute segment. You wanted to come right out of the gate. What were you going to say?
The whole thing was just so entertaining because here you have a guy that can play free safety, strong safety, nickel linebacker, could probably go out into, definitely slot corner. I don't know if he could go out wide. I'd like to see it. I don't know if he's ever been out wide. But just that he's sitting there with Chuck Smith learning all of these pass rusher moves, and he's got to have a plan. He's talking about his cross chop, his spin, the ice pick, the ball. Like, he wouldn't drop any names. Can we enlist the Vault Army? Go find somewhere where Kyle Hamilton bull rushed a tackle. Like, just bull rushed him. Did he have a running start? I need to see the film on this. I need to see him bull rushing a tackle. I'm sure it's out there somewhere, and maybe we just missed it.
Now that we know it exists, I'm with you. PSA, let's get into the film room, guys. It's the dead of off season. We have no idea if it's your off season in your respective lives professionally, but if it is, can you grind some tape for us this past season? We need to see who it was, who was the culprit, or who was the victim, I should say. And but Sarah, like, so Chris, just to give everybody a reminder, Chris has been out of the league for several years now, but this is a 2-time Super Bowl champion. This is a former first-round pick. He played his college football at Virginia. He's 6'3", 270. He had over 300 total tackles in his career, Again, defensive end, 70 sacks, 15 forced fumbles, 6 fumble recoveries. Had a great career. He's now 39. He's speaking with a 23-year-old who's taller than him by an inch at 6'4", 224 pounds. And yet they're able to chop it up and compare notes about how Kyle's trying to enhance something that he wasn't drafted to do.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Someday when his legs go and he's not as speedy, like just put on some weight and go to defensive end. Here we go. I already see it in his future.
Right? It's like, I'm telling you that I cannot recommend that conversation, that episode enough, because when players sit down with guys that they respect and there's that relatability side of things, Kyle starts taking you through literally the terminology. He felt so comfortable to talk to Chris that he's taking him through literally terminology that he doesn't even have down pat yet because he's learning on the fly from Chuck Smith.
He's learning the moves. He just doesn't know the names of the moves. That's okay.
Yep.
That's all right. All right. Yep. What else came from that? Now I want to hear more.
Snippet number 1. That was what it was. Snippet number 2 is Kyle's perspective on the Rook. Nate Wiggins, no longer a rookie. Had a tremendous year 1, former first-round pick for Baltimore in April of last year. Here is Kyle real quick talking about Nasty Nate, what he sees from him in the future.
The one guy I think is going to be really, really good is Nate Wiggins. Corner.
Yeah. He was a stud.
And he's one of those corners just like, if he could line up every single play and play man, he would do it. Like, just, coach, leave me alone. I just want to lock this dude up. Yeah. And, it is awesome to see that competitor in a young dude like that, and I think he's going to be really good.
So, again, nothing that he hasn't really already said at media availabilities and podiums, Sarah, but there was one little snippet from there that sticks out to me, and it's if Nate had it his way, and this speaks to his fearlessness, which was at times was his Achilles heel in a couple rookie moments this past year, but he would love to go man.
If they had another another Nate Wiggins, maybe they would go man more often.
Right.
Or put Nick. How do you say his last name? Nick.
Eman Worry.
Eman Worry. Oh my gosh, could you imagine that? Ooh. No, and that's why I'm really not against if the best player available is a corner, I'm here for it. I'm here for it because you see the Eagles and their 2 rookie corners, and that made Darius Slay expendable, right? And to see what they did in the Super Bowl, especially Cooper DeJean Cup.
Had to be there yesterday for that one.
Had to be there for that one. So no, I wouldn't hate that. And I can't wait to see Nate Wiggins in year 2.
Snippet number 3, a hilarious training camp story from Kyle on Derrick Henry in one of his first run-ins after he became a Raven. This is hysterical. And I will define for you, just in case those of you out there aren't familiar with this term, what thudded up means. THUDDED. Thudded up. It's a practice drill. I got this from AI. A practice drill where players make full speed contact until the initial hit, but then immediately pull away and stay on their feet. Right? Obviously.
So is it like a game of chicken?
To essentially avoid big collisions. Right?
Kind of sounds like a game of chicken.
And I'll say, I'll keep reading it. Maybe.
I'll keep reading the definition,
though. Essentially simulating a hard collision without taking the player to the ground. It's a controlled level of contact used to practice tackling technique without the risk of major injuries.
Oh, so did Kyle have to take on Derrick? Is that what's going on here?
I'll let him tell you.
Okay, here we go.
Live stuff in camp. Did you have to fit him up yet, or just thud him up?
Just thudding up.
What's that feel like?
Yeah, I know. It's kind of funny. He's honestly kind of chill in practice because he knows that he knows nobody really wants to thud him up for real. So
yes.
So I thudded him up one time. I thudded him up pretty good, and I think he went to the ground. And I think after practice, this is one of the first camp practices. After practice, he was like, "Yo, Cam, I'm not gonna run you over, bro.
Right.
I know I'm big, whatever. I know you think you got to bring whatever you got to bring to thud me up, but let's just be professional. Just thud me up, let me go, whatever." I was like, "Okay, I got it." But everybody kind of had to, get over that hump with D-Hen.
I'm telling you, man. The Derrick Henry experience is so good. It really is. Thudding up.
So wait, so Derrick Henry said, "I'm going to take it easy on you," essentially, right? Is that what he said?
My interpretation of
Replay
it.
the end of that for me. Hey,
Okay.
he's got an homage T-shirt on.
Who
Shout out
does?
sponsor Chris Long. Go back there.
Uh,
Get the H on his
Where is he?
right there. That's the homage H
Where?
on his sleeve.
Oh, okay. I
Right.
didn't see that. Okay, yeah, I got that now.
Yeah, just a little shout out to our sponsor.
Here's for sure. Here's the middle part of your clip as requested.
To the ground. And I think after practice, this is like one of the first camp practices. After practice, he was like, "Yo, Cam, like, I'm not gonna run you over, bro.
Right.
Like, I know I'm big, like whatever. I know you think you got to bring whatever you got to bring to thud me up, but like, let's just be professional. Like, just thud me up, let me go, whatever." I was like, "Okay, I got it." But everybody kind of had to, get over that hump with D-Hen.
Wait, now I'm wondering too.
Yeah, I'm confused by the story.
Wait a second. So Derrick went up to him after practice. So he thudded him up good. Kyle said I thudded him up good.
Yeah.
But then Derrick came up to him after practice and was like, "Yeah, now I'm trying to figure out this interpretation." Chat?
He's saying, like, I'm not going to get you back?
Huh. I don't know. Chat? Is this going over our heads here? Now, okay.
It's not uncommon.
Listen, if we get Kyle on, I think we know what question number 1 will be.
Yeah.
What did you mean?
Clarify for us the thudding.
Okay, see, this is what I thought too. 7G Phil, this is what I had thought the first time I listened to it.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Is like, because
Yeah.
he took him out, had him on the ground. He's like, "Dude, you don't have to prove yourself against me. Like, let's just be professional."
Okay.
Because if you
Sounds
want
like
me,
there's a
because
consensus
if you
right now.
want, I could return the favor.
Yeah.
But let's not do that to each other. We're teammates.
It sounds to me like there's a consensus.
Okay.
It took us a second, but we're here now. Appreciate you guys. That's good though. But isn't it the way that like Kyle almost like eats his swallows his pride a little bit, right? At the end, he's like, "All right, got it. Whatever you say, Derrick."
Yeah. Okay, King. Okay, King.
Oh goodness. So anyway, that conversation in full is on the Greenlight YouTube channel. Enjoyed it earlier today, and that now brings us to quick hits. But we should sneak in a couple super chats beforehand, beginning with Dreams, which is yours.
Jaden Higgins ran a 4.47. Loves to run block. Is 6'4" and can play on the inside and outside. Ravens might need to trade up in the second round for him.
My man Quion has been singing the praises of Jaden Higgins for what feels like weeks now. Remember, this is the Iowa State wide receiver. You have your measurables right there, 6'4", 214, transferred from Eastern Kentucky. And I believe you got probably what you wanted to hear there, Dreams, from Emory Hunt when he came on the show last week. Sea King, King of the Seas. Why don't teams recruit sumo wrestlers for offensive and defensive lines?
No. While he brings that up, keep reading it.
Yeah.
I got to show you the sumo wrestler and Micah Parsons went up against each other.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see if I can find this. Keep reading.
You do that. I'll read the rest of it.
I found it. Yes. Let me download it real quick.
He says those dudes are just as big as NFL linemen and are surprisingly quick. And while you bring that up, not a fan hits us with one. If we bring in another solid corner, move Marlon to slot, let Nate do his thing, and draft Nicky Manwari to pair with Kyle, the secondary would be scary. The question is, will Nick be there? Not a fan. He tested unbelievably well last week in Indy, and I just don't get the sense that unless there's some weird trend, right, some weird trend leading up to 27th at other positions aside from corner, that he'll be there. But I could be wrong. Show us what C King wants to see.
This is bananas. Watch Micah Parsons
Should
try
we
to
mute
move. No, it's kind of interesting to hear people in the background. Here we go. There's no music.
All right.
Yeah, move him.
I need someone in my weight class. And go like this. Weight class. Hey, tell him go like this. Hey, can you tell him go like this?
Good. you hear him making excuses? The weight class isn't fair. Look at him, dude. He is like churning. Look at his legs churning.
Oh, yeah.
Cannot move him whatsoever.
Look, he's got a smile on his face. He knows he can't do anything. Just so everyone knows, Micah's weight class would be 245. So,
Yeah, well, that dude's definitely more than 245.
For
So
sure.
I get what he's saying.
Sure.
Let's get Nnamdi Madubuike in there. Let's take Nnamdi Madubuike on a free vacation out to Japan. But part of those duties, in order to be free, he's got to go to some of these sumo wrestling matches and see, pound for pound, who he can move. And if he can't move guys, recruit him.
Tough sell for the offseason. But you try your best to recruit him for that, huh? Amazing.
Free trip to Japan for one day in the sumo wrestling ring. Is that what they call it? The sumo wrestling ring?
First class on the way over. How about that?
Yeah.
Appreciate you, C King. And that brings us, yes, it is. Having done Asia several times, I know we both have. Oh boy, that is no joke.
Ooh, Nelly. Speaking of Higgins, this is a different Higgins. Inside the AFC North news, Adam Schefter reported yesterday that the Bengals went ahead and placed that $26.2 million franchise tag on wide receiver T. Higgins, which is what some were predicting. Everybody's like, oh, you got to move heaven and earth to get T. Higgins, but he's not going to be there. So this is his second straight franchise tag. And the reports are, as they're doing it, to buy time to create a long-term contract. And his quarterback basically told the front office, you better get this done. And said, you wiggle the money around, you figure it out, but I want him and Chase around. So they have until, I believe, July 1st to get a long-term deal. Otherwise, he's going to play on that $26 million tag. Woo.
Ocho Cinco referred to it as disrespectful on First Take earlier today. That's notable. It's his former organization. And T himself, as he's done in recent weeks, took to Twitter and just tweeted, tag, period. That's it. He tweeted, tag, period. So you can imagine that things aren't exactly hunky-dory in Cincinnati, especially with several other cryptic, maybe not several, but we know what his mother put up cryptically about, with choice words and whatnot, saying it wasn't related to the organization, so on and so forth. So, yeah, more to come. More to come for Cincy.
Meanwhile, though, they're going to have to open room, right? Because open cap space. As I relayed from Howie Roseman, the Eagles GM, he said, yeah, we can pay guys, but the money's going to come from somewhere. You just got to move. To pay Peter, you're going to have to rob Paul. Well, one of those guys is Alex Kappa, who is the Bengals triple crown winner, if you will. For his team, he was first in this is not a good triple crown winner. He's first in sacks allowed, first in pressures allowed, first in hurries allowed. So see ya, Alex. And then Mike Hilton in their secondary wrote a cryptic tweet himself saying new opportunities always present themselves. Many looking at that and some reports saying that he's signaling that he will be gone. So, Bobby, because they're already playing Burrow, they're trying to find a way to pay Higgins, and then they got to get Chase done. So the vast majority of those cap hit is going to be with those three players.
For sure.
Meanwhile, this is also from Graziano. Listen to this coming out of the combine. The overwhelming belief of the people I spoke to this week was that the Browns plan to stay put at number 2 in the draft and take one of the top quarterbacks. Their preference is Cam Ward over Shedeur Sanders. Their preference between Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders is unclear. Okay, but here he goes on to say, where is this? Deshaun Watson has 2 years left on his contract at $46 million fully guaranteed each year. So over $90 million more to pay this guy. But his Achilles tendon has been repaired twice in the past 5 months, and he is likely to miss most, if not all, of the 2025 season. There's a strong chance Watson has played his final game as a Brown. Cleveland is thinking about what comes next at the position. Deshaun Watson has single-handedly destroyed any chance of anybody getting a fully guaranteed contract ever again in the NFL. At least one that's significant, right? Maybe guys are doing 1-year deals or whatever, or maybe a 2-year deal. But why would you ever give fully guaranteed money again? And you want to root for players. But man, remember back in the day, Steve Bisciotti caught a lot of flack because at owners' meetings, he was like, I wish it wasn't Deshaun Watson who got the first fully guaranteed contract.
Yep.
Like, this is why. You still have to pay this man $92 million over the next 2 years, and he's not going to be playing for you. Oh, what a bad gamble that was. Oh,
$230 million out of pure desperation at the time for a guy that had more legal trouble on the outside of football than you can imagine. And it has come back to completely derail the Cleveland Browns there. So much so, here you go. Graziano saying that, and it's not a surprise, right? They have to.
No.
They have to move forward. They have to.
No, but every time I look at the money, I'm still like, we've known it for a while, but I'm still flabbergasted every time I look at the money. It's
right.
Crazy.
For sure. How can you not be? So elsewhere, as we continue our quick hits, Zach Berman tweeted out that the Eagles, and this is kind of what we were
referring to yesterday.
Yep, we referenced this when the Darius Slay news came down the timeline, but Zach kind of summarized it nicely here. The Eagles were ready to move on from Darius in 2023, and he was ready, as he said on his show, to sign with the Ravens. Quote, Baltimore offered way more money, and I'm like, I just came off the Super Bowl run. Go chase the bag. Then Dom DeSandro called, said, Slay, we need you. Dom, he's one of the dudes. He calls me and he's like, I need you, because he'd do it for my family. He made it right. Stayed for 2 more seasons and obviously paid off and won the Super Bowl this past year. Everybody know who Dom DeSandro is?
Nope.
Sarah, he is to use a phrase that we used earlier on, a staple. He's a staple for Philly. He is a employee of theirs. He's worked his way up to, I believe, senior advisor to the general manager, director of game day coaching operations, and chief security officer for Philly. He's been with the organization forever, I believe 25 plus years. But he's the dude that, like, you'll see escorting players, having a lot of like Chad Steele kind of cameos, right? And he is beloved. The dude is beloved in Philly, and I actually just met him on Radio Row. He's a great guy.
So, Bobby, in the first topic, we were surprised that Jeff Zrebiec had Tre'Davious White as like a returning player. Slay would be better, obviously, in that role. Check this out. Jeff Kerr of CBS put out his coverage stats in 2024. His completion percentage was 47.1, which was a career best for him. Yards allowed was just 371, career best. Now he's probably not playing as much, so that just raw statistic isn't as helpful. But that yard per attempt, 5.5, career best. 20-plus yard completions, 3, which is his career best. First downs allowed, 15, career best. Pass breakup rate, 19.1%, career best. Again, not saying go sign him as like your new number 2 or 3, but if you're talking about in that Tre'Davious White role, if he's willing to do it, now we're talking.
Yeah.
Now we're talking.
Big play Slay. You get the sense he's still got a little bit more left to give, but then again, could retirement still be an option? Rappaport says that he wants to play 1 more year. We'll see. And there is Ian. The Vikings are not expected to franchise tag Sam Darnold by today's deadline, according to Rap Sheet and Pelissero, but all parties are working through options to potentially keep him in Minnesota. He's set to hit free agency, as you saw atop the list that we had as a screen share earlier on, and has a situation best described as fluid. Sarah, remember, J.J. McCarthy probably won't be ready by week 1. He was their rookie and their pick from last year who came down with an injury in the summer. And then they bring in Darnold, and Darnold takes him. Darnold has a career resurgence. So good problems to have in Minnesota. It's just, do we love JJ enough to truly to build around him? We've already invested in him. But man, Sam had an incredible career and, an incredible year.
Yeah.
And somebody will bring. That didn't start that way with the New York Jets. We all know that. But this guy will be a hot candidate if Minnesota doesn't want him.
Absolutely, he will. Absolutely, he will. Check this out. So, how many times has every franchise picked first overall? Oh, just keep going looking down the list because
ain't on
the
there.
Ravens are one of 3 teams that have never picked number 1 overall, not even in their inception year. What did they have, number 3 or number 4 pick, something like that year? Jonathan Ogden?
Inception. Yeah, well, he was top 5, wasn't he?
Yeah, I feel like he was number 4. Anyway, Broncos, Seahawks, Ravens never had a number 1 overall pick. Could you imagine? I can't even imagine it because we've never even been close. And I grew up as a Broncos fan, so I've never been close my entire life. LA Rams 7 times, along with the Colts. Browns, of course, 5 times. Tampa Bay 5 times. Look at all these teams. Kansas City only once. Could you imagine the number 1? Who would you take this year if you had the number 1 overall pick?
This is such a weird year. It's like there's not a clear consensus, especially because Tennessee apparently wants to potentially still give Will Levis a shot to be the guy.
What Tennessee would do? What would you do for the Ravens?
Oh, if the Ravens had the
Ravens, could you imagine if the Ravens had the number 1 pick? Are you going to take Abdul Carter?
After that medical news came out last week, you'd be rolling the dice, but he's a heck of a player. Be intriguing. Is there somebody that jumps off the page for you?
I mean, Abdul Carter is the first one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
But how about Travis Hunter?
Well, I was going to say, imagine Travis in the Ravens system.
Oh,
right.
Would you play him? Would you play him as a receiver or a corner?
Both.
Or would you let him do both?
Both.
Would you?
Yeah.
Isn't it funny how, like, depending on the team they asked, like the Browns were like, yeah, we see him as a receiver first. Then was it the Browns? I can't remember. The Browns were one of them. And somebody else was like, oh no, we see him as a corner first. I don't know. That would be fun. But Travis Hunter with Lamar?
Oh yeah.
I don't know though. That pass rusher, Abdul Carter.
I think actually, now that I really think about it, it should have been Travis the second you asked me. That should have been, those words should have been coming out of my mouth the second you asked. Travis Hunter for me.
All
Book
right.
it.
Like the Ravens would ever have that shot.
I was gonna say
That was fun for about 20 seconds though to dream of that.
literally, but I wasn't even looking at it from the Ravens lens. I'm like spacing out over here. I was like, oh, who would I pick if I'm Tennessee? No, the Ravens, Bobby. Hello.
Look at the exercise we're doing right now.
Amazing. Super chats. Dre Dog 679. Being here in Columbia, South Carolina, I watched a lot of Nick. I think he's referring to Eamon Worry. A lot of Nick. His speed on the field is insane. He won't be there for the Ravens, sadly, at 27. And look who's chiming in with a $5 super chat.
Oh, thank you, Jake. What is he? Well, let me say thank you after I read it. Let's see what he has to say first.
All right.
Bobby and Sarah's show shines bright. Sports, laughs, and pure delight. I love this. A must-watch duo bringing magic every night or lunchtime.
Yep.
Yes, thank you, Jake.
The play on words there.
The chat itself might have been better than the $5, but I'll take both.
The play on words. I mean, there's a little bit of rhyming in there. There's a little bit of, I mean, look at this guy. He's
you're right. Every night, bright. What am I doing here? Delight.
Yeah, you know how.
Let me
what
read that again. That was so good. Let me read that again. Bobby and Sarah's show shines bright. Sports, laugh, and pure delight. A must-watch duo bringing magic every night.
This guy, man, you know what you're going to get from him. He's full throttle. And just in case you guys haven't put 2 and 2 together, Jake is a fellow content creator. He does what we do for the New York Jets, and he has opened up a bunch of different opportunities for me and you, access-wise, at various NFL events throughout the calendar year. So we love you, brother.
You got to ask questions because he's always like a year ahead of us. So he's always telling us, here's what you got to do next. Here's what you got to do.
Oh, yeah. north of 40,000 subscriptions in his Jets YouTube world, and a wealth of knowledge for us. So appreciate you, brother. Awesome hanging with you last week in Indy. Convinced him to. I don't think he likes cigars as much as I do, but he
Does
tagged
anybody
along.
like? Oh, I was going to say, does anybody like cigars as much as you do? But I think Steve Bisciotti does. You all knew at work when Steve Bisciotti was there.
Heck yeah.
You could smell him throughout the building.
Oh,
Usually,
sure.
there's no smoking indoors. But when you bought and paid for that facility, if you want to smoke a cigar indoors, you smoke a cigar indoors, and I could smell it throughout.
You already know it. I'm sure, and Evan's like, depending on the year, for sure. Ed would have been a part of that, but maybe not during his playing days. At least in the facility. Can't imagine he smoked many cigars in the facility. Post career, he's around a lot. Maybe you could you can smell the stench.
I have questions about that, but I'll reserve them for later.
All right. I got to find a good one. And I drove past a nice cigar bar in downtown St. Pete yesterday, and I looked over, made a little mental note. What's the name of it?
Shoot, I'll ask it right now. We're done with the Ravens content, just so you guys know. What's like the massive difference between like a cigar and a cigarette? Like, obviously it seems like you're getting more smoke, but like, what's the difference? And why would you smoke a cigar and not a cigarette?
So I'd say burn time is very different. First of all,
meaning how long it takes to get to the.
You can rip through a cigarette in minutes.
Okay. The
cigar to me symbolizes good conversation. You better have some time in front of you. You know, I find it a lot more of a, what's the right word to describe the smell? To me, it's a lot less intense than a cigarette is.
Chad is saying there's no nicotine.
That's.
Oh, so it's not like is it a cigar addictive?
Oh, obviously, sure.
It is addictive. Okay. Yeah, but just not nicotine.
To be honest with you, I don't, and Dot is right. I don't inhale cigars. People do.
Oh, you don't?
I don't.
So now, it just stops in your mouth?
Does some of that have secondhand? You know, when you're sitting in a cigar bar and it's coming from all angles, maybe. But I don't inhale. So I enjoy it again. I enjoy it as a.
It just reminded me of Bill Clinton. Go ahead.
There's a little bit of a rush. You definitely do get a little bit of a rush. Nothing that's crazy. Now, obviously, there's different levels to the strength of a cigar. So I know I tend to smoke more mild ones.
So you see it as like a social thing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So like you don't like a crave a cigar.
I would say that's a strong way of putting it. I wouldn't say I crave it.
Okay.
I don't need it. I'll go long stretches without it.
Yeah.
But you put me in some warm weather, you put me on a golf course, you put me on a patio, you put me with guys, post golf round. I'm going to want one.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
So, and I enjoy actually learning about, it's funny. I'm learning things in the chat right now that I didn't even know. And
when
I find
you come sorry, go ahead.
Well, when I go into these stores, right? When I go into these cigar shops, because I'm telling you, cigar bars. A lot of them are shops attached to the bar, and I like speaking with the guys that are chilling in the humidor, because I'm not like a cigar savant over here. I can't tell you I'm not a historian, but I enjoy. I think there's I find it interesting. Were you going to go in the somebody's just saying Devontae news. What's the Devontae news?
Let me see. Did he get cut?
Yeah. Okay. Jets are releasing him. So again, not a surprise given the number. They're going to save. They're going to save $29.9 million in salary cap space by releasing him.
That's why I said when it came up, like, who was it? Was it like a Bleacher Report that day? Somebody was like, we were covering it about like trading for him. I'm like, no, you can't trade for him.
Yeah.
And like, they're going to have to cut him. They're not going to pay him $36 million.
No doubt.
So, no, that's obviously great news. And
not surprising news.
Listen, he's not coming to Baltimore, but I'll give it like a 1% chance just because of how he talks about Lamar. Like you just say to your agent, will you just go call over there? Just go call over there.
See what's up. There you have it. One of the dominoes ahead of next year's next week's new league year beginning. Devontae Adams now set to be a free agent. And I think we had one more slide on the quick hits that I skipped ahead of that you wanted to bring in, and I did too. So,
well, and it's pertinent because here we are on a March 4th with not like, it's not like the craziest news season in the world. But here we are March 4th while everybody's at work, and we have nearly 5,000 concurrents listening to us right now. That blows my mind. And when I tell people that, they're like, really? Like 5,000 people in the middle of their lunch hour? And I'm like, yeah, it's kind of crazy. And so I say that to lead into this tweet by a guy I really don't even know. Josh Pate? I don't know. But he said, Boston radio guy said this about the Pat McAfee show today, and it so accurately reflects why each guy is where he is. So who's he saying, the Boston radio guy? This Boston radio guy says, I am jealous, talking about Pat McAfee, I'm jealous about how he leveraged garbage views on YouTube into a really lucrative TV gig that I'm jealous of because, again, if I was running ESPN, I'd go, what is everybody talking about? Oh, his Aaron Rodgers interviews. But the main part is he leveraged garbage views. So going back to Josh, he says, this thinking is still prevalent in corporate media. They delegitimize YouTube/pod audiences because many of their shows and talents would evaporate if they had to compete out here. Now, I don't know that about everybody, right? Like if Jeff Zrebeck moved over to YouTube or whatever, I'm sure he'd get plenty of views or whatever. But it is a different animal. And the competition is massive, Bobby. It's absolutely massive. How many people have podcasts and YouTube pages just for the Ravens these days? Right? And so, but what he's saying is it is still pretty prevalent in corporate media. It's the who is this? Josh Pate.
Just want to make sure to give him
college
his due.
football show.
Yep.
Okay. National college football. And it is true. And obviously, if we ask the chat their opinion, they're going to have an opinion saying, yeah, we like pods too, because that's what they're here for. They're here on the YouTube page. But at some point, I think that when traditional guys kind of age out, I would like to see people give more legitimacy to channels like this and others where we're not connected to any huge brand. I just don't think that's necessary anymore. People ask me all the time, oh, would you go back to the Ravens? And I'll be like, no, I don't think so. It'd have to be a pretty special set of, I won't completely rule it out, but for the most part, like I'm 95% confident that I wouldn't unless I got some crazy, crazy offer, which wouldn't happen. And they're like, yes, you would. Yes, you would. And it's like, no, I wouldn't. Like you, for example, you've been to Buffalo, you've been to Indy, you've been to New Orleans, and now you're sitting in Florida and you're probably going to be there for the next month. Like you couldn't do that if you had to answer to a boss every day. Yeah. Or how about the fact that every morning I wake up with my kids, I do piano lessons with them, I do violin lessons with them, I get them breakfast, I see them out the door, have them have a completely lovely morning to where they go out in the world feeling loved and fed and stuff has been accomplished. Then I go to a workout and then I come back and then I get to talk with you about football for a couple hours. And then, you know what I mean? Like, and on top of it, even though we have that lifestyle, I'd like to think we have pretty decent content. I'd like to think that some days better than others, some comments better than others, but it's like, I would like to see corporate media give more legitimacy to it, Bobby.
Resonates, significantly what you're saying. And I think it brought me down memory lane, and I don't want to lump an entire medium into this thought, but it brought me back to my radio days. And what I mean by that is I don't want to stereotype all of radio in 2025 for being narrow-minded the way that this Boston radio guy is coming across as.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Not everybody's that way, but there's a significant portion though, Bobby, and we won't name any names, but we've definitely felt that. We've definitely felt that from media out there.
Absolutely. And it brought me down memory lane because I had a really weird end of my career, and I felt like I was at a crossroads when radio showed me the door. And I had to look myself in the mirror and ask, do you want to take a lateral move and stay in town at the other radio station? Or do you want to go take control? And do you want to take a leap of faith, invest in yourself, invest in the idea of a partnership, even though I didn't even know that would exist at the time with you, and just hit the ground running and don't look back? And I chose the latter, and I just feel so much gratitude for that. And so when I see things like this and I realize that that lack of forward thinking, that small-minded approach still exists in that medium, wow, it's hard for me to not look back with just a ton of gratitude that I made the decision that I did, that they made the decision for me by pulling
Yeah.
the plug.
Yeah.
And
But
and
you had another
ultimately,
job offer in radio. You could have gone that way.
I did. But the voices that I had in my head, like my mother at the time, who's also an entrepreneur, I just think they were paramount. So anyway, I'm glad we were able to finish on this, because what McAfee's done is incomparable.
Yeah.
And what we're doing, we're just trying to accomplish a fraction of what he's built. And I think we're on our way.
I agree. And Bobby, why don't we do this, because the Devontae Adams news is going like the chat. That's all they can think about right now. We'll definitely have to follow up. We'll find out. I guarantee between today and tomorrow, there's going to be more news reports on where he might be leaning. Prior to being cut, there were lots of reports about him following Aaron Rodgers wherever he goes. I do not know why he would want to do that. He is out of his prime, but still productive. And this is the moment you got to strike. If you need a ring on that hand, you got to go to a contender. I surely hope he doesn't do that with Kansas City or Buffalo or whoever. But we'll have to investigate this more and we'll dive much deeper tomorrow. We'll dive much deeper, because I'm sure we'll get more reports over the next 24 hours of where his head's at.
Oh yeah. It was a quick hit, because it was an impromptu quick hit, because it just came down 10 minutes ago. So we'll have more for sure. Good thought. Chef Trez, Christian Almgren, thank you both for believing in what we're building. We appreciate you guys. And you guys are key members of the Vault Patreon community. So thank you for all the support. If you guys are interested in doing the same, this is Chef's and Christian's monthly shout out. You guys want to shout out or sign up for that tier, you can do so by visiting patreon.com/RavensVault podcast. We have links to all that information in the show notes below. Please, on your way out, like the video if you haven't already done so. Hit that notification bell so you can be notified when we're dropping our daily content. Subscribe. We're coming up on 24,000 subscriptions. And remember, too, we got a huge Twitter audience today. Remember, we are available to you in the YouTube space. It can be a lot more interactive. You can join the show with super chats, and it's just an easier viewer and consumer experience. So we appreciate you for being here, and we'll be back under 23 hours from right now for a Wednesday noon stream. Anything else?
That's it.
Awesome. Look forward to it. Been trying to track down some guests. Nothing to tease just yet. Well, I'm not going to tease it regardless, but nothing to share with you guys yet in terms of what we have coming up. But definitely been trying and working the phones based on some of the conversations that I had last week. So hopefully we'll have something coming down for the pike for you guys soon when it comes to featured guests. And until tomorrow, for Sarah Ellison, I'm Bobby Trossett signing off from this Tuesday lunch hour live stream. We'll catch up with you on Wednesday. It's 12 noon Eastern, and we are a year-round show, and we're gearing up for free agency. So buckle up. We'll talk to you on Wednesday, if not before.